I'm really excited about this chapter.
Me too.
So, rich thinking to grow.
I have to go grab my book. I'll put my video off for a second.
With Haley, Karen, Karine, and Katherine. Today, we share more on the second step to riches. Faith. Found
Hey, Poppy.
in Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich. So you can see I'm a little bit, I'll have to learn that one point, that software, the StreamYard. So I'm going live now.
We are live. Hey, everybody. Happy Friday morning. How are y'all doing?
Hi.
Everybody's
How
kind of
are
looking at me
you?
going, I'm sort of awake. I'm sort of here. Wake up and smell the pavement, but maybe I need some coffee involved.
Some coffee.
Coffee
I have
helps everything.
coffee.
Very
And I
pretty.
love this cup because it says, what you think you become, what you feel you attract, and what you imagine you create by Buddha. Isn't that time?
That's
It's
perfect.
really a big teacup, but I filled it with cafe. How is everybody today?
I'm doing good. I've got 2 dogs here, and I've got one on the left that's a visiting dog, a dark golden retriever, and then I have a golden retriever on the right. It's a cream golden retriever.
Good.
I have a lot of dog currently guarding me. It's a very
Guarding
good
you.
morning.
So
Guarding
I'm
me,
up,
wanting attention from me. Yeah, this is the good life.
actually, it is a great life. I remember my dog actually saving my life, and I'll save that for another time, but really saved my life and saved David's life, that same dog. So that dog ate. I would go to the keg, and we all know the keg in the US. Do you have the keg? Well, a steakhouse, an expensive steakhouse. And when we would go to the steakhouse, I would order a steak for the dog. And Bill would look at me and say, you're spending $50 on a steak for the dog. Yes. Yes.
Okay,
And you got that. So, Haley, thank you for welcoming us and sharing something so dear to our heart. Rich Thinking to Grow with the right now we're on Think and Grow Rich, the book. And not too far, actually, Wise, Virginia, where Napoleon Hill, well, he was in Pound, Virginia, but it's at the university that he's put everything in the Napoleon Hill Foundation. Like, what is it? How many hours is that from your home?
About 4.5.
Exactly. You can go and catch that energy anytime you want.
It's a day trip for me.
Well, the next flight into Raleigh, when I go to see you, when you're in Cary, you can be sure I'll be sort of saying, Haley, you want to go for a drive?
It's only 4.5 hours each way.
We'll be able to spend time picking some books. And on that note, today we're going to be talking about faith. And really, when I think about faith, that I don't want to get off track, because you have to know that right now for certification, and I'm looking for some people that will give me constructive criticism on a presentation that I have to prepare, a 15-minute presentation. And this is going to be really interesting because I can be long-winded with the information. So I have to put down. The third principle is applied faith, which we're not going to talk about today, but when we come back in a couple of weeks, we're going to talk about, because applied faith is different than faith. And I'm working on the presentation, and I just want to bring up how I really like this chapter. I think it's all about positivity. So now maybe somebody else can share their thoughts on faith.
I find this chapter is, if you've read the book, this chapter is worth rereading. I think the whole book is worth rereading, but just reviewing some things in the chapter before coming on and over the course of the last couple of days, it's been like, oh, wow, I love that. Oh, I have to take note of that. Oh, I need to remember this. Oh, I need to practice this. There were so many things, and just really powerful things. And we're not talking about faith necessarily in the religious sense, but one of the amazing things was that faith plus prayer equals direct communication with infinite intelligence. So even if we're not necessarily referring to the faith in this chapter necessarily in the religious sense, as I thought that was really, really powerful. It can be applied in the religious sense, but there are so many other aspects and layers.
Yeah,
Funny, so I actually finished reading Think and Grow Rich last weekend. And Katherine asked me as soon as I told her I had finished it, she said, well, what do you think? And I said, well, I think I need to read it again. That was the first thing I thought. But going back to before I had read the book and I understood there was a chapter on faith, I said to Katherine, I'm not very religious. Like I was, I went to church when I was a child. I got confirmed in an Anglican church. I've always sort of had a friendly relationship with faith as far as church goes. It was not an unpleasant experience, but I don't have a strong religious faith. And Katherine said, that's not what we're talking about. That's not what this is about. So I don't know if you want to speak to that or maybe.
Yeah, that is an interesting thing, because a lot of people think when we say the word faith that it is organized religion or, something like that. And that is not what we're talking about. It is that, internal faith that you can do it in what you're doing or what you're achieving. It's a very different construct.
Yeah, Katherine, you had a good way of describing it.
I do, but I really have to say, I love what each of you have said. You've got my mind, you know how I have my heads on different things that each of you have said, right? And I think it's so important to share, because I just learned about something that I didn't know. And when I say it, you're going to say, what do you mean you didn't know that? But I really didn't connect it so simply, because Napoleon Hill does simplify things in such an elegant way and so down to earth. But so infinite intelligence you talked about, Karen. And I think that infinite intelligence, people don't realize what infinite intelligence is, right? What is infinite? You hear the word. And I went through times, like, people try to be politically correct and they don't say God, because is it? And then they'll use the word grace, and then they'll use the word this and the word. It doesn't matter the word. It's really that there's something beyond you. Okay, so you call it what you want. Grace, God, I believe in God. And we don't want to go there, because I'll either have you leaving because of my beliefs, or you'll think I'm judging others. I really don't care what other people believe, as long as they're believing in themselves. But I want to be free, and I want other people to be free. My parents used to watch me bring people home when you talk about religion and faith, and this is the topic. I brought every religion you had. I'd go to karate and bring the people home. Like, do you have anywhere to go for Christmas? I had Muslim, Jewish, they don't even celebrate Christmas. And they're in my Christmas Eve putting up my Christmas tree. Because I celebrate Christmas in the Irish tradition, put a light in the window, you don't have a place. So they're not coming in off the street, clearly. But strangers are coming to my home, and I by invitation. And they're not the same faith as me. However, I'm very okay with my faith in what I believe is out there, whether it's God, universe, grace, energy, whatever you want to call it, but infinite intelligence is out there. And I think we can all agree that it's out there. But here's the thing I didn't know. I didn't really know what part of us connected to it. It's the subconscious mind. And when I say it, it makes sense. So when we reprogram these things with affirmations, what we should, we wonder, what the heck is it? Well, that's the part going out there saying, hey, I demanded this from you and it's your job to send it. Because if it's God, then God's going to give you whatever you ask for. But you have to ask for it. Answer the phone when it comes and ask for it. Well, the universe is doing the same thing. Energy is doing the same thing. You and them, you're one. We are part of them, but we're the one, if you look at the brain, there's the receiver and there's two parts, the broadcaster and receiver. We'll cover that in Think and Grow Rich. So it all ties together in some fabulous, wonderful way. And I guess we talk about the subconscious mind, and I want to take it to business, because anybody in here, women's entrepreneurs, they're entrepreneurial. So when I think about an affirmation, isn't a tagline an affirmation? Mm-hmm. Didn't Nike, when they say just do it? Like, affirmations is what you want. What you want. And if you're in business, it's not what you want. It's what your clients want. We forget why we're doing this. We're doing it to make money. You have to have faith. But guess what? You've got to take action. And the just do it Nike, like how many people, they don't take the time. How can they believe when they don't know? This was the next thing. If you don't know what you want and what you're doing, you can't believe. What do you believe? So I'm curious on how the three of you actually add to these things. It's crazy.
Well, I mean, they talk about, finding your definite purpose. Okay. And we also want to replace that definite purpose with an actual goal. So let's say you're going to talk about wanting to help people. Okay. Wanting to help people, wanting to create connectivity. How are you going to do that? What are you going to do to achieve that? It's very nice to say, oh, this is my purpose in life. I want to feed the poor. Okay, so what are you going to do? Are you going to cook? Are you going to open a soup kitchen? Are you going to what? So that's putting some concrete steps into place and creating the actual how you're going to go about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Well, and I think that there's an aspect here of having faith that you can do it. Faith, that internal compass, that internal driver that if you set that goal and you set out towards something, that you're not stopping 3 feet from gold, that you continue doing it because you have faith that there is gold somewhere in here. So I keep going.
Yeah, that's the way, instead of thinking of it as faith, meaning, a religion or a science or even the universe or anything, it's more of an action having faith, right?
Well, they talk about faith being emotion, and I thought that was interesting, and I actually had to kind of think about that as faith and emotion. But Napoleon Hill also talks about faith being the only known antidote for failure. So if you are getting down on yourself and if you feel like you are not successful, it's also a way to transform that and have faith in yourself and continue to pursue your goal if you want to achieve it.
One of my favorite things along that line is the phrase, the universe is unfolding exactly as it should. So when something doesn't happen that you wanted to have happen, or you thought was going to happen, or you were working towards and it didn't happen, just that disappointment and that emotional sort of sometimes crushing feeling, The minute you start to turn it in your brain and say, you know what, the universe is unfolding exactly as it should. That was supposed to happen because of something that I am not aware of yet. So that's the type of faith when we talk about faith. That's what I think.
But not using that as a crutch because you didn't put in an honest effort. And you have to be honest with yourself. There's
It's
nobody
not an
else that's going to
excuse.
judge you and decide that.
No,
But
it's not an
using
excuse.
that as an
Right.
excuse. Yeah, absolutely. You've
I
pushed and
think
you've done everything and it didn't come through.
we're not going to get to the self-confidence formula because it's too important to go too fast on. We'll carry that next week. But there are 2 points that I'm very interested in talking about before we leave today. I love that you said friendly relationship. I love that word and that phrase because really we're in a couple. The infinite intelligence that we're talking about or whatever, you are a couple with them. When you look at your husband or your wife or your partner or your child, you're in a couple, you know, the law of attraction, law of vibration, a couple. We are a couple with infinite intelligence. If we do not communicate to our partner what we want, how the heck is that going to come? And I wasn't meant to talk about this. I know, I'm sorry. But when you said friendly relationship, it's so important because do you have a problem looking at your husband and voicing that, listen, could you not do those dishes or did I have to come back to that mess? And that's not, it's just an example that happened once in my life and not with my husband. But it's a type of thing, right? You're comfortable to demand what you want. No, I'm going on this, You're comfortable. You speak differently with your partner than you speak with anybody else. That's the relationship you want with infinite intelligence. It's all about being comfortable to ask for what you want and feeling you deserve it. So, you know, if somebody you love does something out of line, and you can't spend a lifetime with somebody you love without them saying something to offend you, even though you shouldn't take it personally, you will, you're going to stop it. And you're going to say, hey, wait a minute, that's not what I asked for. I want this. Why is it taking so long? Wait a minute. What's going on? And you may find out things because you take the time to stop. Treat infinite intelligence as if it's you and them. There's nobody else. They're there just for you. Never mind, this isn't where you want to be generous. What you want for yourself, you want for everybody else. So of course you want everybody else to have the same thing, but you get to have your private relationship, and that's you and them. The next thing that I really want to talk about with affirmations before we leave, and this, Haley, is directed directly at you, because I think about you all the time when you're showing us, working really hard to get us presence in social media. I mean, Karine and I are constantly looking at your stuff and saying, well, Haley says this, and I think this, and your name comes up at least once a day in our conversations, that's for sure. So I'm directing this one at you. So often people make all these calls to actions. Affirmations, to me, is the one you want to make that's the call to action to your client, and how you phrase what you want from them. So often we're uncomfortable to ask for the sale, to ask for what we want. We have no problem saying, come to our workshop, it's free. But to say to them, I'm a website developer. I know how to get you business and make you money. Now, I know how to help you figure out what you want. But now I have to ask you to pay me. I should be okay with that because I do have no problem with money. But I'm too busy in your business thinking you have a problem with it. So if you could speak to the call to action affirmation, I think it would benefit your community.
Well, I mean, I think that there's a lot of things there with money, with self-worth, with faith that you're worth it. You know, there's a lot of cultural and gender norms around women and money. We're not as comfortable necessarily always talking about money in, you know, the US and Canada. and asking for money in quite the same way and negotiating. I think that's one thing that other cultures maybe do better, that they have that faith and that training and that practice, negotiating. So I think that there's a lot of things that happen there. It's not just any single vector that I think gets us as women, and in terms of like not charging what we're worth, or not charging a competitive rate, or whatever it is, because I would say it's a multi-factored kind of a situation. And one of the interesting things I see in the online space, which is really an interesting dynamic, is a lot of the charge more, charge what you're worth, charge this, charge that. But there's like a real disconnect from how much you could maybe charge in any other industry, or any like offline business type connection. So there can be like this fundamental disconnect between like the value of what you're trying to sell and what you're actually doing. So you may get lucky in finding that one unicorn client that's going to pay what you want them to, that's going to pay the high ticket price, and that reaffirms your bias that you can charge that price, but maybe that's not the right thing. Maybe that's not the going market rate. Maybe that's a lot of things. So I think that that's a very nuanced topic for business that is maybe oversimplified and overgeneralized a lot.
I think so too. I come from the magazine world, and I can tell you, a lot of it, when you want to sell advertising in a magazine, first of all, it depends on how many people you reach. If you are an amazing magazine and you reach 20 people, or you're an amazing magazine and you reach 2 million people, you can charge differently for your advertising, because what the advertisers are looking for, normally anyways, is reach. But there's also the topic. So if you are a magazine that talks about pets, that might not appeal to somebody who's looking to advertise or learn or get exposure to, gardening. So it really, going back to what you can charge and what you can't charge, it really does depend on what you're selling, first of all. Also, how many people it appeals to, and that will determine your price as well. But my favorite topic, my favorite thing about this that I've learned along our journey is people, and this is just a standard, this is a generalization, this is, I'm not taking credit for this or anything like that. If you charge people a dollar value for something, they actually value that more than if you were giving it away for free.
They do.
Right. So that's just a standard, right? So that's where, once you get over that hurdle mentally, you're kind of like, I have to charge people. For some people that are new in a business, it's hard to do that, but people value money. So if they think they're investing some of their money in you, they will value what you're giving them.
Well, so and we've run into
and
that
Haley,
too.
I'm trying to respect the time. I know other people go in, so I'm just going to bring that up at this point for anybody before.
Yeah, we're safe right now.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, we're safe for a few more minutes. But I was going to answer your question, your comment, and say yes, absolutely, up to a point. It's interesting too, because a lot of times people are afraid to invest anything. And invest anything can be even their email address, because they don't want to be contacted.
Yeah.
So there's different types of investments.
Value.
Are you willing to invest time? Are you willing to give me your phone number? Are you willing to give me your email address? And there is definitely a sort of financial transaction for, I have to give you something of value for you to even be willing to give me your time or your email address.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a good
So
point.
that brings us right to the topic at hand. The name of the book is Think. That means think about what you're doing. Think about what you're asking for. The second thing is grow. Grow your relationship. Like, this is what I'm hearing everybody say. That's what I hear you saying, Karine and Karen. Grow that relationship. When is the time to ask? Like what you recently said, you don't just get on and say, okay, hand me your money now. You don't know me. I'm coming in cold, and I'm going to say, okay, well, hand me your money. Well, wait, grow. And if you do the thinking and you do the growing, then I believe Napoleon Hill is very clear. Then you'll get rich.
Yeah.
So I really love that we're sharing this, especially with women entrepreneurs. We're taking the time to try to find one nugget that relates to their business. Next week, we'll go to the self-confidence formula. And I think that that really help anybody that's sitting on the fence that are concerned. But Haley, I really do. I wish we could we have a call to action to them, to ask them to think about, like, what should be in a call to action to people.
I think it needs to be clear what you're asking. What do you want me to do? How do you want me to do it? Why do you want me to do this? What are you giving me for it?
What are you
Why should I
giving
get off
me?
my butt to do what you want me to do?
Wow.
And then the more that somebody trusts you, the more likely they are to whip out that credit card. So if people don't trust you and you don't have a pre-existing relationship, you've got some work to do.
Right.
I had a funny one with that. I went in one time in real estate and I was very green, like I'd never, like, maybe my third real estate transaction. And I went in and the fellow there was a labor lawyer. Lawyers can be very precise. And I was a bit nervous. And I walked in because I was a newbie. And he said, well, tell me who you would hire to represent you if you were doing real estate. I said, you want me to give you my competitor? Like, you want me to tell you that if I wasn't available, who I would hire? And he said, yes. And I was very uncomfortable, but I told him who I thought it would be. And me first, but then I said somebody else. And when I did, he said, why? Why would you hire that person? So when you're out there ready to sell something, think of the best person out there. Who's the best person you know to do this? Okay, like how many people, you may not be able to say it, but I have read Fearless Marketing, your book. I am when I have something, you're my go-to, like, Haley, blah, blah, blah. Okay, it's, yeah, but this person said, okay. So you know what? The thing is that you are an expert. But the problem is you're sitting in a world where there's thousands of people claiming to be an expert. The next time you go to hire somebody, ask them who they would hire and why. Mm-hmm. Watch the answer and then go back to a few people and figure out why you want to work with them. Because I assure you, if you ask me why, I'll tell you who. But then by the time I'm finished why, I'll ask you to go back to all those people. And whatever they answer should convince you that you've picked the right person. And in this room, I love that we're authentic and available. Reach out, everybody. If you need something, don't sit there, don't worry. Like, we'll give you 15 minutes of our time. You're not going to get a bill for it. And we don't just, when I worked in real estate, I tell this to Haley all the time, and she's in the online world, knows that well. So you can imagine how many clients I refused. I only worked with how many my hand had and wouldn't take another. They had to either go get somebody else because I knew what I could do. Do you know what you can do? That's what you have to ask. Are you looking for your match? So thank you, Haley, and anybody here, like, really reach out. The answers are there.
Thanks, girls.
Thank you. This has been fun.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next week, self-confident formula. You don't want to miss it. And the week after that, I'm going to have the applied faith, and I'm going to grab Karen and Karine and Haley wanting their feedback. So they should make it pretty neat. Haley will probably ask me to present it at one point in her wedding group because it's going to be concise. Take care.
Happy weekend.
Happy weekend. Happy Friday.
Take care. Thanks.